I was nervous. I'm interviewing Mark Norman, like it's insane. And so when he first logged on, I couldn't see anything except for like his hair or whatever, but he like the top of his eyes. So I couldn't tell that he was even on the toilet. So I'm saying stuff like, "Hey man, thanks, appreciate you being here," like acting completely normal. And then he with his phone keeps going like and making this face like trying to be like, "Do you see this joke that I'm making?" And I'm like can't see it. So I'm just being
That's
like,
great, bro.
"Yeah, I really appreciate it." Like not laughing, not acting at all. Like he keeps like the classic Mark Norman face is like, and then eventually I pick it up and like, oh shit, I had this. I couldn't even see that you were on. So like it was hilarious, but I accidentally like made it awkward.
Thank you for taking a seat with the chairman. Welcome to Chairman of the Board.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
Hey, how you doing, everyone? Welcome to the Chairman of the Board podcast. My guest today is Jake from Joke WRLD. Thanks for joining me today, Jake.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Now, I'm sure if you've seen really any comedy clip nowadays circulating on YouTube or social media in general, you might have come across one of Jake's highlight clips of like the best comedians, or one of his like interviews or compilations of like, Joe Rogan or Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura or any of the best comics going around. He just did an interview with Mark Norman, which we'll talk about. So just a little background for people who don't know Joke WRLD. Joke WRLD is basically, such a good tagline, which I don't know who came up with it. It says unknown on your bio, but it's like basically like Sports Center for comedy.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It says unknown because I think I saw it in a comment before I thought of that tag or knew to use that myself. But I also thought about putting like MLK or something that's obviously fake under there. But I just went with unknown.
You should put Kevin Hart. Like Mark Norman does.
Yeah. That would be funny. And a lot of people might believe that too. But it's before I just want the concept of it that basically perfectly sums it up, like the Sports Center for comedy. Basically, the idea was to make like a network, like how sports has like Bleacher Report or ESPN, where they talk about all the sports, all the athletes, all those people all in one. They show highlights, they do commentary on it, they make different edits, they keep people up to date with everything at once instead of going to each individual team's social media. And that seems like something that's been around in sports for a long time. That's another thing that I really love is sports in general, football and basketball, all that good stuff. So I just thought, all right, this is another thing I love, comedy, and I just wanted to put those two things together. And I felt like it was kind of a obvious idea in a way. You show the compilations to Try Not to Laugh, just like Sports Center shows their highlights, their top tens and stuff. Then you also have the behind the desk aspect of it, with the guy saying this is something interesting that happened, and these are just kind of the facts about it. So yeah, it's basically just supposed to be a one-stop shop.
See, that's what I like about your channel, because some comedy channels like just, they're trying to make money real fast and they steal comedians' clips, don't give credit, and just put shit together and go viral and off shorts or whatever and build their own thing. But what I like about yours is it's truly transformative content. You are a genuine fan of comedy and a comedian yourself, which we'll talk about a little bit on how you got into comedy. Mm-hmm. But you're doing this because you're actually supporting the comedy community and doing real interviews and building on top of what comedy is, not just like taking stuff, which a lot of people kind of do to just make money, right?
Yeah. And that's, I appreciate you saying that. And that's how I've always seen it, is like, I'm trying to do something, positive and fill a gap in the space that I don't think is there. Cause I was also a fan of like, I don't know, like Cody Ko, he's a YouTuber, or these guys, just regular YouTubers that just do like reaction videos or stuff like that, or talk about different things in these 10, 12, 15-minute YouTube videos. And it's just cool to see someone online basically talk about stuff that you like too. And I loved all these comedians' podcasts. I love the art form of comedy, stand-up in general. But there wasn't like, besides going to each individual channel and you can be like, all right, I watched the Theo Von video, then I watched the Tom Segura video, then I watched the Shane Gillis video, and you're just with those fans on just those channels. There was nowhere that you could just talk about it all in one. And that's just, as a fan of YouTube, the platform, and comedy in general, I was like, this just seems like, I don't know, something that should exist. And yeah, I'm not trying to, steal clips or do anything like that. I feel like that's a common like troll comment that you could get on.
I was gonna say you probably got that quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't bother me too much because I do know what I'm doing, and I also get a lot of comments that say like, they'll be like, what's that podcast with like the Asian guy and the ginger guy? Like that looks funny. I want to look that up. And then someone in the comments or we'll put them on. Oh, that's Bad Friends. You gotta check it out. Like there's so many people. Someone said that they found out who Mark Norman was through the Best of Mark and Shane video, and I'm like, that's insane that you could be like. There's so many people that are getting stuff out of this, which is what I want in general, and it's helping these comedians too in a way. Maybe not when it was smaller and the views were smaller, but at this point, like there's a Theo Von Try Not to Laugh with 7 million views. Not that he needs the help at all, but like that's still an insanely viral video to comedy podcast standards on YouTube. And I feel like it's got to have it. I don't know. It helps push the narrative forward of comedians into the spotlight. Not that he needs it. Like I'm saying, he obviously doesn't need my help, but that's still 7 million more people who got to see his funniest moments, boiled down. And by the way, that video is not monetized for me either. Like he claimed part of that, like that money went to his channel as well too. So most of those, not all of them, but most of them, the comedians are getting exposure, and also how YouTube works, they can also sometimes get paid off those too. So those comments don't bother me. I'm not making just random compilations to try to get, make money fast or whatever. Like the best of the month, I think actually helps people because there's 25, 30 like mainstream comedy podcasts at this point. A best of the month video with, comedy stats at the end, still adding on a valuable edit. I think that I just think it provides value, and that's kind of what I'm doing. And I'm not trying to take spotlight for myself. I'm not trying to be, in the thumbnails or anything like that. It's not about me at all, but it's good to have a voice or a face behind it so you can make videos that aren't just compilations, that you can make something like news or like a weekly podcast guest roundup. Stuff like that needs someone to be on camera, which I don't mind doing, but I'm not trying to make this like the Jake world. What I mean?
Because you haven't even posted like your own stand-up.
No.
Like some people will build a comedy channel or something and then post your own stand-up so it gets more views and stuff. And you haven't even done that yet.
No, so I wouldn't do that on these channels. I've maybe like a second channel and share it in the community section, but I haven't even done that. Like I'm just thinking of what I would consider doing, and no, I'm not gonna just put my stand-up from a open mic that I filmed or any sort of show on Joke WRLD, because that's supposed to be the best of the best, keeping people in the comedy loop. And my stand-up is not part of that world, and that's fine with me. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
Well, I was honored when you reached out to me at some point. I don't know if you put on YouTube, but I know you put on Instagram. And that was very nice of you.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I think that you're hilarious, and I think people liked that clip. So it was one of our best Instagram clips, I think. I think it's on TikTok as well. But yeah, so that's the Instagram has changed a little bit in the past because it started off, I just wanted to be like comedians who are more coming up to be sharing their 60-second jokes, almost like a version of Kill Tony, except for it would just be just clips, just endless clips of 60 seconds. And that's just 60 seconds is because that's how long a reel is, not because it's like Kill Tony, but that's just how Instagram works. But I thought that would be cool. And then it just got so crazy with the DMs, and then with other DMs, because that's also how I give people, I communicate with people to send them stickers in the mail. Like the DMs are just crazy at this point. And the Instagram was not growing very fast. And so I thought, let's try to make it look more symmetrical with the YouTube channel, post more comedy news on the Instagram too. Because at first the YouTube was the only news source. I didn't imagine the Instagram being that as well. And then I just decided to make this more of a cohesive brand and just be consistent across all social medias. But the weird thing is, most people would just think it's a YouTube channel. Like I feel like you got to go pretty deep to even be following the Instagram at this point.
Yeah. But it's cool that you've made this kind of environment, because I still think, well, Reddit in general is toxic. Oh, but but that includes the comedy section, as you know. I was going to ask you what you think about all the comedy drama and its effects on comedy and stuff. I guess we can get into it now, but like,
Yeah.
you know, that's in my opinion, I personally don't really like some of that stuff. I mean, I've seen some funny videos going into Brendan a little bit,
Yeah.
Over, maybe a year ago or something, but it's a little too toxic because it's not funny.
Mhm.
It's more hatred. And I feel like the audience you've curated is people who are genuine fans of comedy, not trying to like, not with bad intentions.
Yeah.
They're genuinely like happy to just be talking to other people who are like-minded versus Reddit, which is just crazy.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I'm not a big fan of the drama stuff for my channel. Sometimes it can be enticing to watch. Like I'll watch a few videos on YouTube about something. I'll be like, oh, that was interesting, but I don't know if I would consider making a video like that. I also don't want to really take sides in these kind. Like sometimes there's a drama that's just too big to ignore it, and if I'm trying to think of a weekly comedy news topic, it's like this is clearly the biggest thing that's happening right now to a comedian, but it's not just like every video I post, I'm looking for what the drama is or what the beef is. And so those things are like, you got to talk about, like the Schulz and Nelk thing was going viral across multiple platforms. It's like, all right, let's break this down and see what this is all about. And even in those videos, I just try my best to say, this is actually what happened, or like what we know happened. And that's it. Like, this is just the story of what actually happened in real life. And I'm just reporting that. I'm not trying to be like, this guy's an idiot and this guy sucks and he's not funny.
Literally what the news, you're doing what the news literally should be.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I guess
and you're a comedy channel.
Yeah.
Even comedy channels are doing that now.
Yeah.
It's like all independent media is doing the right thing. And all of them are still doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten the message yet after
That's hilarious.
all this time. Yeah, dude,
it's taking
crazy.
YouTube channels about people that are supposed to not be serious to actually be like,
yeah, dude.
And I respect that anyone that's like making content, and if it's like actually you put thought into it, you made a script, you're making a video and edit it. Yeah, I'm not hating on the hating channels, I guess. I'm just saying, like, for what I'm doing, it's different. Even though sometimes they end up covering the same topics. Like, okay, I have a video about Brendan and Bobby, and so does a lot of other channels that are just kind of more opinionated. I'm just trying to report that and be like Sports Center for comedy. And then there's also other sports accounts that would go in on athletes, and that's just different. Like, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I personally, it's not my style, and that's just not what my channel is about.
Well, that's good. You have good comedy ethics. That's good, man. That's good. So yeah, let's talk about how you first like had the spark of being interested in comedy. Like everyone, I think every comedian has a certain time where they knew they were funny, or at least they knew they were interested in stand-up. What sparked that for you? And do you know, like, remember around when?
Well, I always liked joking around, or comedy in general. I feel like that's how we communicated, like in our family and stuff, just, busting balls all the time, just always trying to make jokes or stuff like that. Also playing sports, you're in the locker room your whole life, you're with your friends, you're with your buddies. It's just, good humor amongst friends that was always like how I liked to speak to people, is trying to make them laugh in general. How I first got into comedy and stand-up in general, it's funny because I'm 25 years old, and I like comedy history. I like to study it or learn about it as much as I can. But the first person I really remember getting me into it, besides I think being on a cruise when I was in like 6th grade and seeing the stand-up that they had there or whatever, is Tom Segura's first Netflix special coming out when I was, I think, a senior in high school or a freshman in college. And watching that with my buddies and being like this, and it was edgy, it was dark, it was like, this is hilarious. Like I just loved it. I was like, this is amazing. Then I got into all the stand-up that they had on Netflix at that time. I think it was like Bill Burr. Then Chappelle started coming out. Then Netflix turned into this just massive. There was a run for Netflix where it was like almost all stand-up basically that was coming out, like before they started making their own shows and promoting these different like reality shows, or like what all that kind of stuff, dating, their 100th dating show that they're producing or whatever. Like there was a time where it was just all stand-up, and that really, really got me like, I love this. Like, what is this? So then I started listening to their podcast. I'd always listened to Rogan and loved the episodes where a comedian would come on, because that would be like 2 or 3 hours where they're just talking about how do you like become a comedian, or like the beginning of it all and that kind of thing. And I was like, that's amazing. And years later, that kind of drove me when in creating this channel. It's like, I want to make a channel where when I was like starting to get into this and wanted to do it myself, like I could go and actually learn about it too. And like the interviews that I've done, the few interviews, long form interviews I've done that are over like an hour or so on my channel with those comedians, most of the questions are just so like inside stand up. Like, how did you do this? How did you do that? Like at the beginning, like that's what I was really interested in. And I don't know if that many people are as interested in that versus just seeing the funny clips. But I just loved that. I would love listening to Rogan because of that. And that got me into the other podcasts. And then my own stand-up journey started my sophomore year in college. There was just a sign. I went to a D3 school. I played football at a Division III school in Ohio. And so there was 2,000 kids there. It was the town itself that it was in had maybe 10,000. It was small. It was a tiny town. We only had one bar to go to. It was a weird college experience, mostly house parties and stuff. But we had this one bar, and they had a sign for an open mic there. My sophomore year, I saw it in the fall, and and I saw it. I was drunk. I was like, I want to do that. I took a picture of it. The next day, I saw the picture on my phone. I was like, all right, this is great. That was a weekend. We had a rule on the football team that you can only go to the bars on the weekends, and you're not allowed to go during the week. But this was on a Wednesday, and so I had to ask the captain of the team if I could get permission to go to this open mic on this Wednesday because it was at the bar. And he said, yes, but only if you film it, because we're going to play it at the captain's, the player meeting that we have every Friday before the game. And I'm a sophomore. I have no playing time. I'm like a scout team dude, which I was my whole career, by the way. But so it's like embarrassing. This is like the senior captain. I'm like, dude, they're going to play this in front of the whole team. Like now this is like, this is way more pressure than I wanted for just trying to go to an open mic. So I spent the next few days just like trying to write jokes, trying to like on a Google Doc, just listening to everything I had heard on Rogan. I think he said that he listens once to like Crazy Train or some song like that over and over while he's just writing on his keyboard. And I'm like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I like picked a song and I would just write all these jokes. Half of them were probably like ripped from Twitter or something somehow, like this, what, like it was bad, but some of them were good, and it went okay enough to where like I was like, okay, that won't be the worst thing, I guess, if they have to play this at the captain's meeting. And it was slightly embarrassing, but it also wasn't that bad. And after that, they had me do a joke of the week at that captain's meeting for the rest of my career there for the next like 3 years, which was funny because now it was almost like being a regular on Kill Tony almost. It's like now I got to figure out a joke every week. Like that was embraced there. And then I was able to go to this weekly open mic that was ran by these two old ladies who had 5 minutes of material. And I don't even know why they were really doing it, but they organized this open mic and kind of took me under their wing. I got to do other gigs around this tiny town, and it was cool. It was I got better every time. I didn't know that you're supposed to work on jokes every time. I thought it had to be completely new every single week because for a while, like, so I would have all these jokes. They would hook me up with different people. I met this townie there who was in this like rock band, and we were drinking. He was like 50 years old, just like hair down to here, like rings and all this stuff. Just townie in this weird, and usually in this town it's so small and like in the middle of Ohio, you don't really talk to the townies when you're a college kid. They're kind of like, I don't know what's going on with these people. But I told him that I'm a comedian. He's like, you should open for my band at this other place in town. It was like kind of a bigger venue, maybe like 200 like seats in it or whatever. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I went to that, and that was probably my worst experience ever in comedy because he's like, yeah, you could do like 15 or 20 minutes. I had maybe like 5, but I was like, I definitely want to do this. I told all my friends about it. I had like 15 dudes there, like in like Jersey, like college kids there, like trying to get in, and they were like, oh, it's $15 each, and none of them had $15, and so they all left me there. So now I'm there by myself, and the audience there was insane. It was all like like leather vests, bikers, like beards, like burly, just men, and they're there for a concert. And what this guy didn't tell me is that his band went on second in between. So there was a whole nother band that played for like 2 hours. all these bikers are enjoying this guy or this band playing music, blah, blah, blah. And then they stop. And while the second band is setting up their instruments and stuff, he's like, all right, now you go on. So these people were just all dancing, drinking, listening to like loud music. And then I'm like, all right, everyone be quiet basically. And I'm going to try to tell you jokes. Like I already look young. I was 20 years old. I had to use a fake to even get into the venue. And I'm not even on the stage. I'm standing in front of the stage on the same level as everyone else because the stage is being set up by the second band. They're doing like sound tests. They're like playing their test, like my microphone's screeching. It's going terrible. At one point I just forget what I was going to say. And I literally just said, I forget what I was going to say. And I think that was like one of my biggest laughs. It was truly terrible. I just got out of there and I was like, I'm leaving right away. And as I was leaving, this huge guy, leather biker vest, he grabbed me around the shoulder and he goes, and I'm terrified at this point. And he's like, that shit was funny, man. And I was like, oh, thanks, dude. He goes, but you got to do some more racist jokes. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Thanks, man. And he goes, do you want me to tell you some? I know a lot. I was like, yeah.
That's always the thing right after that comment is want me to tell you something. Yeah.
So he told me some just shit that he probably read on the internet and I got the hell out of there. But that was kind of my experience at first. And then I joined Facebook groups. I would drive up to Cleveland where I'm from. I got to perform at Hilarities a few times, do a few like tournaments there, like, just you try contests or whatever. And so the Cleveland open mic scene, when I'd be home from school or if I would drive up from school to do shows there, that's when it started getting a lot better for me. When I was out of this just crazy farm town of heroin addicts in the middle of Ohio. The Cleveland scene was actually fun. And I got to meet a few people there. And so then that all kind of led into what I'm doing now, which is like, so I was doing that. That's what I wanted to do when I was in school. My senior year, I was trying to figure out how I could get a job in either like New York or California or somewhere with a big comedy scene, because I was like, I can't just graduate and I'm going to need a day job, but this is like what I want to do is try to be a comedian or involved in comedy somehow. And then during spring of my senior year is COVID hit in 2020. And so all the jobs I was going for, they were in like sports sales, like with teams, like ticket sales. Those all got pulled out because sports weren't a thing anymore. No ticket sales, obviously. And there was just no jobs. I couldn't find a job for like a year. I was doing Instacart deliveries and stuff and living with my parents. But during that time, I was just like, and there's no open mics during that time either too. So I couldn't do comedy and I couldn't get a job. So I was just like, okay, well, I still love comedy. I'm still in consuming comedy and I still want to be involved in it somehow. And so that's when I started posting the first Joke WRLD videos, is during that time when I was Instacarting and living at home. But then eventually I secured a sales job that moved me down to Tampa, and I kept doing it, kept working on Joke WRLD until I was making basically the same amount as my 9-to-5. And that's when I quit that, went full-time into Joke WRLD, which was way more time than a 9-to-5, but I love doing it and it's fun. And then I've been full-time for almost 2 years, I think, in January here. And yeah, I've just been able to put a lot more time into it, grow it. And as far as my onstage presence now, I'm maybe get up like once. I wouldn't call myself even a comedian at this point. I mean, I have it like in my head at this, I can do it. I could do a type 5 for you right now that I just have memorized, but I get up maybe like once every 6 months, if that, because a lot of it is like, I love doing this, but I also get to express that bone or work that muscle by editing a video or writing a script that I know like thousands of people are going to see, or even hundreds of thousands. And it's still working in comedy versus me going and screaming into the abyss and waiting for 3 hours to get 5 minutes or 10 minutes at an open mic. It sometimes I'm like, that sounds like an excuse to yourself because, it is harder to get up and do that. But I don't know, my time and my priorities have kind of shifted. So I don't claim to be really a comedian anymore, but it's something that I really miss doing. I'm still writing the jokes like in my notes and exploring those ideas. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of, did I answer the question? I don't even know.
Yeah, you did. You definitely did, bro. Well, you've had a wild ride. The fact that you had to show everyone on the football team your first set
Yeah.
is hilarious, but probably great for you,
Yeah.
you know, to go through that. And then the experience of being on stage with the bikers and
Yeah.
bombing from that many people and getting, you know, that's another
Yeah.
great experience to bomb
Yeah.
to.
There were some good times too, but those aren't as fun to talk about.
Right. But yeah, I kind of know what that's like too with trying to get on stage because I'm here over in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And really a ton of the comedy clubs shut down during COVID. And that was my senior year too, by the way, in college. And yeah, so it just, after that, I was looking for places to go, and Helium, which is, you know, there are several around the United States, is pretty much the last one alive. And people from like Idaho and Washington come over to perform there too. So it's very competitive to get stage time because it's the only venue with like a good amount of people.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm handicapped, and most of their venues now aren't handicapped accessible.
Oh, wow.
The ones that were like closed.
Yeah.
So it's like my only option pretty much. I'll call places and be like, hey, can I come perform here? They're like, no, you're not like allowed here. It's insane.
Oh my God.
Okay. Great. Yeah, dude, it's insane.
They got to do like Michael Lair in the first Kill Tony when he's performing just to the right of the stage. That's crazy. I would assume that they'd all have to be up to date.
Oh yeah, you'd think. But like, have you heard of like the grandfathered in law, where buildings are like grandfathered in?
I mean, I know what that means, I guess, but I hadn't heard of it. Yeah.
So basically, it's like if you're an old enough building, you don't make certain kind of renovations. You don't have to make it handicapped accessible.
Okay.
So there's tons of buildings that are just like, yeah, you can't come in here anymore. And I have like two bit ideas about it. One where like I go there anyways, and I'm in where the audience is, and I struggle to like get up out of my wheelchair and climb on stage for the full 5 minutes, and then say like, I guess there's no handicapped parking spots for stages or something.
Yeah. The whole bit is just the 5. Yeah, that's very funny.
Just struggling with all my might.
Yeah.
If anyone tries to help me, I'm like, no. Yeah. Just make it super awkward. I think Tony would like that.
I think so too. Yeah.
And another one would be like, I want to talk about like, it's insane that, like, imagine if buses were grandfathered in. Imagine telling Rosa Parks, like, hey, you still got to go on the back on this bus.
Actually, this bus, we're allowed to do this. That's hilarious.
That's what it's like. So I don't get up as often as I'd like either, sadly. Just because Helium is like.
Is there a big. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Is there a big market for it there of like comedians, like people are driving in from out of state and stuff? I wonder, like, if there would be enough of a market or a demand for it to even just start a mic at like some just random like coffee shop or something.
That's what some people do, but it ends up being like, 5 or 6 comedians, and then, and I can't drive either currently. I'm still trying to. It's complicated. I used to be legally blind till I was 20. Now I can see, but I see like 3 of everything all the time because of these artificial lenses. It's nuts, bro. I've had eye surgery while I'm wide awake done.
Really?
Like, oh yeah, twice now.
Oh my God.
In emergencies.
What is that like?
Eye surgeries were my biggest fear of all time. Like I've dealt with heart, spine, all that shit my whole life. That's like drinking water, nothing easy. But I couldn't do eye drops before 2018.
Wow.
Now I do them every fucking night like there's nothing. This last surgery I did, I elected to do it while I'm awake. So I don't have to have the breathing tube. I'm like, yeah, just fucking do it. I don't give a shit.
So could you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw them doing the surgery on me the whole time.
Oh my God. That has to be. Dude. What happens when you blink? That's probably a stupid question.
They have these like things in your eyes that keep your eyes open.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, bro.
That's terrifying.
No, but like once I had 8 eye surgeries within a span of 6 months. And
holy
that really
shit, dude.
Yeah, in 2018. And that really conquered my fear.
Yeah,
so now I just don't give a shit.
Some exposure therapy.
That was my last fear because at one point I texted my doctor, my eye doctor, and he opened up the hospital for me, his doctor's office. And he's like, because he knows how like rare my shit is. And he knew that I'll probably go blind if he doesn't operate on me right away. So he looked at my eyes like, oh yeah, you're having a retinal attachment right now. Here are your choices. We don't have time to get to an operating room. Either you don't move, like you have to keep your eye looking up and to the right, and you don't move it or I'll blind you. Okay. And we do surgery right now while you're awake no anesthetic, no going to sleep, nothing. Like you're awake, and we do it right now, or you just lose that eye. And I'm like,
what?
Well, fuck. Yeah. Yeah. And he did eye surgery on me right then and there. And
Dude,
my eyes are really complicated.
And if you moved it, you would go blind?
Yeah.
And eventually you had that in your head the whole time. Like if I move my eye.
Yeah. I had to look up and to the right for
how long did it
well
take?
over an hour. Well, he did it was like just enough of a surgery to keep it like in place, the retina in place, until the next morning we can go and get to a hospital.
And you felt every bit of it.
Yeah, he put like one anesthetic shot, kind of, but it didn't have like time to really work that well.
Oh my God.
And it's so weird when they he stuck a needle into the white of my eye, and it feels like a balloon's popping in your skull.
Dude. That was a
crazy,
good description. That is the craziest thing I think I've ever heard, honestly, in my life. That's insane, dude.
During this last elective eye surgery, they were working on my pupil on my right eye, trying to fix something. And I was just I'm so over the fear. They told me afterwards that we had to barely use any they didn't put me to sleep because I was awake. They gave me the, what's the medication called? It makes you just a little loopy, kind of. I can't think of the name. I know the name. But yeah, I can't think of it. But like, he's like, we barely had to give you any medicine. You were just fine. We didn't have to do anything. And then I was telling them, and I remember all of it. I was telling them stand-up jokes, the act I was going to do for my competition.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're the first person to ever tell us jokes when we're doing eye surgery.
Dude,
you're like,
that's
holy
hilarious.
shit, bro.
Talking about a bad gig. You're just, damn.
I didn't think about it until after, though. I was like, I was making them laugh as they're working on my eye.
Yeah, that's kind of risky.
Not smart.
You're really asking for it there. Wow.
But you know that comic urge where you just like want to make people like laugh and stuff. So I wasn't thinking about it. I just wanted to be like nice and stuff.
And you're with them for like over an hour. It's probably like, I gotta make you laugh some. Dude, that's crazy. I can't believe that. I'm going to be thinking about that for weeks. It's insane. Good for you, man.
It was pretty intense. And it was weird going from, I have so many bits about all this stuff I haven't gotten to do on stage yet, but it was really weird going from a blind person to like, technically I have 20/20 vision, but I do see like 3 of everything because they're not really sure why. But
60,
so I see like 3 of you right now.
Damn. That's funny.
Watching porn after that was nuts. It's crazy, dude.
That's funny.
But yeah, so what is it like in doing stand-up in Florida compared to Ohio?
Well, I did it way more, like so much more in Ohio, so I don't have too much of a gauge on this, but there's a lot more like some of the open mics in Ohio are like bars or like different random places. Here there's a lot more like actual comedy clubs that have open mics, which I think is cool because Hilarities didn't have an open mic. So it was like they had the comedy open where you could go and then you got to get through the rounds, and I got to do that a few times. But the actual clubs here have more open mics, which I think is really cool.
I heard it was a pretty good like area for comedy. I know.
Yeah.
Andrew Schulz goes down there a lot, right?
I think so. I'm not. Yeah, it's a good place for touring, which is why I'm excited about redoing some of the setups I have here because it's good. Like enough people come through. I did the math on the different clubs, like from St. Pete and Tampa in my area. Enough quality people come through to where I think I could have like a in person, because we're talking about Zoom interviews versus in person before we got on here, but I think I could have a pretty consistent long form like in person show just based on people who are in town. If I can get to that, if I can contact them.
You know what'd be cool is if you could have them come in for an interview, and if you could, maybe you could do it yourself for now, but eventually maybe hire like a team or something and go and film the behind the scenes of like getting ready for them doing a show.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or something. I kind of document. I think Schulz did that at one point too for his own stuff.
Like
if you could do a version of that.
Yeah. Really cool. Like the on the road vlogs. I feel like a lot of a few people have that, but yeah, like couple that with the interview.
But do it like Sports Center style, or something like that. Really fast paced edits. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
I do too.
Because it's good for up and coming comics to see, like you talked about earlier. You're not sure if everyone's really into watching the interviews where you're asking like technical questions about comedy and all that stuff. But like you said, when you're watching Rogan, and same for me, there is no like school for comedy, and if there is, right, it's not really a good one.
Yeah,
the best part of it is, the best part is like you get to do 5 minutes at the end of the thing.
Yeah,
7 minutes or whatever.
$600 or something.
Essentially for that time. Yeah. So it is helpful for all the people, and there's a lot of people like you and me who saw that stand up and started getting interested in like, maybe I'll try it, or every party I go to and I mention I'm a comedian or something, they're like, oh shit, I've always wanted to do comedy, but I'm terrified. So like and I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
So there's tons of people interested in doing stand up, but they're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. Like, so I think it would be still, and as you know, it does have some demand. People are watching the episodes, but
I agree. I think that would be, I love that idea. Were you terrified the first few times that you went up? Because I definitely was, but I think the thing that curbs that, or that people don't know that you're talking about, like at parties or something, is like, if you know once you know what you're going to say, and that's worked a certain amount of times, it really, the only terrifying part is remembering that, you know what I mean? But what was that like for you?
For me, the only time I get, the thing is, like I talked about earlier, I don't really have any fears anymore. It's weird because I've gone through so much shit.
Yeah.
But I do get anxiety about not getting my wording right. I think it's more like OCD or anything, or forgetting a joke.
Yeah.
Because I'm very like, the way kind of Carlin is, I like it written out just kind of like poetry. Just, I like every word, the way it flows.
Right.
That's the way my brain kind of works. And I'm very meticulous in how I write things and how I put it together. And if I forget one line, it fucks up everything else.
Yeah.
And that makes me anxious.
Yeah.
So it's more for me being angry at myself for fucking up than if I'm not funny or I bomb. Because I've done jokes where I do them perfectly and they bomb. And I know it's funny because it's worked tons of other times.
Right.
And they don't like it. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I know it's funny. But,
I think a lot of people are maybe scared of the people or the being on a stage, but that part is so minuscule compared to like remembering exactly the words for me. Cause I'm the same way. Like when I was writing jokes more or performing, it would be like, I write it down exactly how I'm going to say it. And then it's just kind of like remembering a speech to a certain extent, but it blows my mind. The guys are like, talk about just writing on stage or just getting a topic and going up there and just like riffing on that to write their material. That used to just, I couldn't even conceptualize how that is even a thing, but it does. It started to make a lot more sense to me once you realize like how comfortable and confident these guys are, which I think at the beginning of an open mic career, you just have zero of that, because that's sometimes when you're funniest. I feel like no one's funnier than they are around their like good friends or maybe their family or people like that. And yeah, you can rely on a lot of inside jokes and stuff because you have years of experience with these people, but you're
comfortable, right? You're just
100% comfortable. You're 100% yourself. And you just think and say funny things without even considering what's coming out of your mouth. And that, I feel like that makes so much more sense to me how these guys can like write on stage, is because they're that level of comfort on stage and that's just what they're doing. And once I thought of it that way, I was like, that does make a lot more sense. It's just how do you get to that point that is still kind of...
You might feel like this too, because like when I'm behind the camera, I've been broadcasting since I was like 14, I think. So I'm just so comfortable behind a camera now. I don't give a shit. Like I just, some people get paralyzed in front of a camera and they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And they're okay like in person and on stage. But are you like that now, or you're just so comfortable on camera that it's just...
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't really... Like the most times I'm uncomfortable on camera is when like I think like my roommate or my girlfriend or something can hear me. Like I'm like that, because also if I'm doing multiple takes of something, I'm just like, oh, this is so like embarrassing that I'm being like saying the same thing like 3 times in a row or like, but being in a room alone with a camera, it means nothing to me because I'm like, also no one can see this until I look at it and edit it. Like this is literally just like being alone. No one even knows that I'm doing this right now. Like right now, until this podcast is if it was a live stream, that might be a little bit different. But right now, this is like, we're just by ourselves and no one can see what. Yeah. So the camera thing has never really bothered me. And I guess
you feel like you can like you feel like you can play, right? You can just do whatever, you can maneuver however you want, right? Yeah. And they've been on stage for so long and so many years.
That's true.
That's just second nature to them. They just like, this is where I work. Like Joe Rogan says, like it's his gym. This is where I work out. I'm sure when Joe goes to the gym, he's not nervous. He's just does it all the time.
And that would be an amazing way to feel about stand-up. I mean, that would be insane. And obviously it's achievable just by putting in the reps and the work. So it's like, it's not unrealistic, but it is like, I think that's just the coolest thing that they could feel like that. But also in my videos, it's kind of like, I don't really feel like I get to really ever like broadcast my full sense of humor, if that makes sense, which I'm not like upset about, but I feel like it would just need to be a different show than what I do now. Because like I was saying before, it's like how the real news should be, but isn't. It's like a lot of jokes, like there has to be someone that is the punchline. If I was going to be based on what I make videos about, there's really not too much room to enter my humor or humor in general, if I was trying to still be neutral or straightforward. So I think that part makes it even easier on camera. But it is weird because it's like we're on episode maybe 62 of the comedy news. Like I've been in videos before that, I've done the long form interviews, but I don't feel like really anyone like knows me, which I don't mind actually. I kind of like that. It's just like, I could just be a robot reporting the news basically. Like which I like to a certain extent. And also it's like, oh, that's kind of strange to another extent. But I think something like a long form podcast, like with people who are in town, or some different ideas for shows or stuff I have maybe on the second channel, could maybe showcase more of myself if that's something that I wanted to do or if people wanted to see. But right now, like I said before, it's not really about me. I'm just the voice and mouth that has to get these points across basically.
Well, right now it's like you said, like you're still in the building phase and it's like you're actually making money. It's like it's your job. So like you can view that basically as your job. And then for your second channel, just like, play, have fun, just do whatever, and maybe take some of the jokes that would have been on Joke WRLD and put them in there, or not even like just take some of the same like comedy topics. I know I do this with my friend Ryan from my other podcast, Walk and Roll. Like I do kind of like my funny, silly shit on that. And we just talk about nonsense, and then on here I'll have like a CEO or a tech startup or another comedian or, so I can do serious stuff on this one and I'll just play and have fun and shit talk on the other one.
Yeah, that is perfect. And I would really like a system like that. I feel like what was hard, I feel like people have an advantage if they're trying to start a podcast. I think the best way to do it, because the hardest part really is consistency, doing it every single week. And what makes that way harder is when you are relying on finding and booking guests and getting schedules lined up and stuff. I think it'd be so much easier to start a podcast with a podcast partner like Walk and Roll or Two Bears, One Cave or Bad Friends or Matt and Shane. Like these podcasts that have, sometimes they'll do an interview, like they'll add a third mic occasionally, but I feel like you would see way more success because you would just have, you don't have to rely on anyone else. Obviously a solo podcast is an option, but that, I mean, you got to be.
You got to be Bill Burr, Tim Dillon.
Or Theo. Like those three people are really, and those three are like
Theo's on another level, bro.
So I feel like that's a huge advantage. That's what I would like to do that too. I just don't. I don't know anyone like in Tampa that I'm like, yes, you are, and we're gonna do this together, and also like you're gonna join this team or what, you know what I mean? It's just like, I think that is a great way to go about it. If you're trying to build something long-term, is I think it would just be easier, and people can grow and connect with like your dynamic with you and your partner and enjoy that. And I think that's a huge, like, I think that's a great idea if someone is trying to start a new thing, like just have occasional interviews, like if you can get a hold of someone, but that way you don't ever have to miss an episode because you couldn't get a hold of someone or they had to reschedule or the Zoom wasn't working or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do, because like it was also a good start that way because it gave me tons of practice for editing, and you know how long editing takes and the learning curve for all that shit and all that stuff. So if you're starting a new podcast, it's just a good idea just to grind them out, and because you always have your friend there and you can just keep doing them over and over and over.
Yeah,
and you can scrap podcasts too.
Yeah,
you can backlog, scrap them if they're not good, and then if an interview works out like this, perfect. Then you book it, you do it, and
and it would take less pressure, or would take pressure off of doing interviews with a partner too, because it's like, all right, let's say you prepared for it together, and let's just say for whatever reason the interview went like terribly. It was like awkward. There was long silences. It was just weird. You and your partner will think that's funny, or at least have each other's back. It's not like there's just so much. There's so many good reasons. I feel like that would be the way to do it. If you have that option, and you got to have it good back and forth.
This one time, my friend Ryan and I, when we were first starting out, we argued. I think we got like 23 minutes in, and we realized we had been arguing about who was going balder for 23 minutes, and it became a real argument. And he's like fully bald now. I clearly won, but we scrapped it, and then eventually I just put it out as a bonus episode.
That's hilarious.
Like,
you should put it out. You should repost it now with a side by side and be like,
oh, I could, he's kind of accepted it, but not all the way. He still wears the hat a lot. So who's been your like favorite interview so far, comedy wise?
Honestly, it was like this Monday with Mark Norman.
Mark Norman.
It's definitely been my favorite one, because that was the second time I've talked to him. I've had some really fun ones, I think, but a lot of them were surrounded in just this like nervous feeling, just hoping that it would go well. And also, I don't know. This one was definitely my favorite just because it was my second time. I felt more confident. I felt like it was fun, and he was having fun, and it went well. I said the name of his special wrong twice because I was just nervous, but other than that, like he asked, oh, that's a good question. He said that a few times, and then at the end afterwards, we talked for a little bit just on Zoom, like off the interview, and that was just a really special, cool thing for me, just getting to like talk comedy with Mark Norman. It was awesome. It was like, that made my day. So that experience.
Andy did it. If people haven't seen it yet, you should go watch on Joke WRLD. But he did it on the toilet, which is just so classic Mark.
Yeah.
Did you watch him get off the toilet after the interview was over? Like,
so what happened was, so before, when he first got on the Zoom, I had my laptop here, and then I had this mini iPad in front of the Zoom camera, and then I had the Zoom window like minimized because I had a few questions and like notes on this iPad. And like I said, I was nervous. I'm interviewing Mark Norman, like it's insane. And so when he first logged on, I couldn't see anything except for like his hair or whatever, but he like the top of his eyes. So I couldn't tell that he was even on the toilet. So I'm saying stuff like, hey man, thanks, appreciate you being here, like acting completely normal. And then he, with his phone, keeps going like, and making this face like, like trying to be like, do you see this joke that I'm making? And I'm like, can't see it. So I'm just being like,
great, bro.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Like not laughing, not acting at all. Like he keeps like the classic Mark Norman face is like, and then eventually I pick it up and like, oh shit, I had this. I couldn't even see that you were on. So like it was hilarious, but I accidentally like made it awkward, or it didn't land right away because I literally couldn't see it. But yeah.
How long until you saw it?
Maybe like 30 seconds, but that's a long 30 seconds to be completely on the wrong page. And it was like literally right when the call started. So so then I was like, all right, that's funny. And that really made me more comfortable, just like that happening at the beginning. And then did the whole thing. on the toilet. I think at the end he started what he was like kept wiping, like bring up a certain amount of toilet paper as a joke. And then as soon as it was over, he just kind of stood up and like walked and sat on his bed and was like, "Oh yeah," like, and we just were talking like that. And I was, that's hilarious that like for the whole, he was just waiting there, and then afterwards he was not there while we were just chatting. So yeah, that was really funny, and it also seems to be something people like in the comments. So shout out to Mark Norman for doing that, boost the algorithm. A bunch of people commenting about the toilet. That's definitely helping the video. And shout out to my dumbass self for saying soup and nuts twice, because that's another comment that's helping drive the algorithm too.
Soup and nuts.
I was just nervous. I said it. I mean, I prepared for the interview. I knew 10 times out of 10, you could have spun me around in a circle, hit me in the head with a bat, and I would have known it's called soup to nuts. But of course, the only 3 times I said to his face, I was just like,
yeah,
run fast.
I've done it before too, bro. I know exactly what that's like. It was a great interview though. The way you, I got to compliment your editing style too. And just the whole design of Joke WRLD. Like, did you do all the designing yourself, all the editing, all the?
I designed the news page and like how it looks and everything. And then for the past maybe like probably 10 or maybe 15, I don't know how long. I recently started around episode like 50. I started working with an editor who's awesome. His name is Austin, and he does all the comedy news videos now. And then I'll do some of the other videos. But it's cool because I've got to learn a lot. I love editing. I edited every video on the channel up until until I started working with Austin, and then seeing what he can do with my content has made me a better editor as well. Like the videos that I do edit, the way that I've seen him, he's just a professional editor. This is what he does full time, and how I've seen him use the different videos that I'm used to editing and do different things with them has also taught me a ton about it. And I feel like I'm a better editor from just seeing what the kind of stuff that he can do with it. But yeah, the side panel, all that kind of stuff, was just, I thought, a cool design. And
because your website looks great too.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Did you do the logo? Like, did you design the logo behind you?
Oh yeah. Well, this was a rug that someone made me from Smug Rugs. But yeah, I designed that logo, and then there was a few different variations of it or updates basically. I designed it as kind of just on Photoshop as well as I could. And then eventually, as we started gaining steam, I took it to an artist on Upwork.com. And I was like, can you just make this look like, just round it out, make it look better, like high def.
Yeah.
And so he helped me out there. But yeah, it's, I like it. I think it's good. It's weird because when I was trying to come up with a name, I had so many different, I knew the idea before I knew like the name, and I had some terrible names like Comedy House, or I think one was Comedy Cone, and it was like an ice cream cone with like a microphone thing on the top. There's some really bad ones. I think Joke Gravy was one, and there was like a gravy ladle. I don't even know what that means. And then as soon as I came up with Joke WRLD, and I'm a big Juice WRLD fan, and it kind of sounds like Juice WRLD. I used his spelling of world, and it kind of looks like one of his album covers with like a dripping world. So I figured that out, and I liked the bright pink, and I liked making that just a consistent like thumbnail to gain.
It always stands out when I
recognition.
Scroll by it.
Well, that's good. Yeah. And I like that people know that this is a Joke WRLD video just based on that. Like it also makes it easier to make thumbnails because I know I have the background picked out every single time beforehand. And so yeah, that was pretty big. That it's weird because like that decision could have easily, I could have went with like yellow or something. I don't think it'd be the same. I think that this is like I'm just happy how it all worked out because it easily could have been something like Comedy Cone.
Don't you feel like once you don't you feel like almost a flow with your ideas once it gets started?
Yeah, it was almost out of my hand. Like once I thought of Joke WRLD, that term, it was like a light, like of course that's it. And then that momentum or like flow does just carry you, and then it's almost out of your hands at a certain point. Like any creative venture, once you're really locked into it and you're like putting the work in it, you don't even feel like you're the one doing it. Sometimes it just is just moving forward, and you're like, that's obvious, let's do this, let's do that. blah blah blah. The thing is, when it gets so repetitive, like I'm closing on year 3, I think, of the channel. It's like trying to think of new ideas versus being in the same routine of like, this is working, this is working, this is working. But eventually, which happens to everybody, this is working. You can't just keep doing that, or it eventually will get stale. So the tricky part after finding some success in one routine is still having your mind looking for those new ideas, like when you were first got into this idea, and then having a new flow open up and go for that, which I try to manage well, but it is, I don't know, it's tricky. It's weird because if you would have told me this was my job while I was in college, I would have been like, that is amazing. But I would have thought that it was completely different, of like, oh, like YouTube, and then you just do some of this and that, and then the rest of the day you're doing whatever you want. But this is really like so much, like I'm not throwing a pity party because I love it, but it is so much work. And like when it's working with like social media stuff, like watching podcasts or going on Instagram and stuff, obviously that's easy to physically do, but eventually you're like, I got to stop watching these like your mind feels like just dumb or numb. Like, and I've
been wondering, like, how do you watch all of them?
Well, I watch them in times 2 speed, which helps.
You really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that will also make you feel crazy after a whole day of that.
Listening to Theo Von at 2 times speed talk about it, like crazy shit.
But I literally had to. And then, you know what also helps is when I'm trying to search for a certain clip or topic, is I got this Chrome extension where you can like search for, it'll like make a script of the whole YouTube video on the side. Then you can Command F and like search for certain words. So I still have to watch everything, but if there's a video where it's like comedians react to whatever, I don't know, Will Smith getting slapped, I could just go to the podcast now and type in Will Smith and then see if that way I don't have to watch. So that's definitely saved a lot of time, and the times 2 speed thing helps. But it really is just once that's why the channel took off a lot too, once I could commit to this full time, because it really is just a time thing. So it's just, you gotta do it. And when I had other responsibilities, I obviously didn't have the same amount of time that I could put into this. So yeah. People
don't get, I'll tell them like, I just did a podcast and it'll be out in like, 2 or 3 days. They're like, that long? I'm like, yeah. Do you know how long it takes to edit all this shit, timestamp and post it everywhere and do the clips to promote it? And then you have to take all the time to post the individual clips, and you got to put them on your phone because some apps don't let you do it from desktop, or it breaks all the time. And like, you don't understand. Like, it drives you fucking nuts.
That's another reason I stopped doing the hour-long interviews. Besides just like trying to schedule and the Zoom, I didn't like the quality, and it was, some guys would be doing it from like their phone or what. But besides that, which is fine for a short interview, but for an hour, it's like, how are we going to expect anyone to watch this? But besides that, it was like, filming an hour-long podcast is like a 5-hour edit. If you just want to like get it done, that's not even adding in any like imagery or B-roll or like zooms or like funny like crops or anything. And that takes so long. And you have to watch yourself do this interview for an hour, which I hated because it is like free form. There could be times where you like stuttered on something, or you think that you sound pretentious, or like, I hated watching it for an hour. I'm always with these like 40-year-old dudes that I look up to and respect so much, and I'm just this like nervous kid on Zoom talking to like Dusty Slay, and I'm like, I think you're the man. Like, and it's so that was, I hated that. And then also to go through all that, to find shorts for it, to find mini clips for it, to do all of that, it takes so much. If you're the only one like producing a video podcast, it is so much work. And all of that for me to get the amount of views that those would get versus trying to make a different type of video, it was like, this is taking up 2 or 3 days of Joke WRLD's workforce, because it's just me. So it's like our whole workforce is taking 2 or 3 days out of this week to put this thing up that barely anyone cares about. Like, I was like, this is just not a smart formula. Like, or I'm putting my time into the wrong things.
Yeah, I think you're doing the right thing because once you can hire a certain amount of editors, as your channel gets bigger and bigger and bigger, like 2 or 3, and they can completely take over like the bulk of everything. And you're like the creative director. Because I know this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be the creative director of things because I know how to do all the edits. I know how to do all the shorts. I know how I want to post it, where I want to put blah, blah, blah. Like all the strategy. I want to be the guy on camera doing the interviews, doing the questions, being all the creative person.
Yeah.
You know, like do this in the thumbnail, do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Just be that. And then after you grow and you can hire those people, you can also have them work on your podcast. So you can focus on, you know, I'm sure you could even hire a scheduler at some point too. I mean, just having like 3 or 4 people would just allow anyone to just get tons more content out because
for sure
the bulk of the time is just doing editing, organizing, research, and you know, all that stuff.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I also like, because I'm working with one editor now and it's great and he's super talented and I like just giving him projects, and if I'm running low on time on a video I would usually edit, I could just send to him, then I could start working on something else. But I'll still do all the thumbnails and stuff because I do like that process. And I know that one day if this company is where I want it to be at, which would be like a bar stool level, but just with stand up, or like a whole, you know, office space, the podcast under you, maybe a comedy club, like the real like Sports Center, ESPN, but of comedy, which I think it will get there. We have a long way to go.
I really think you're going to do it, by the way. I really believe in it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if it got there, obviously I would not be, you know, making the thumbnails, I guess, or stuff like that. But I do enjoy the creative process, and then like putting that out there and like working on every detail and fixing the font by like, oh, I'm going to move it down like literally that much and see how that looks. Okay, move it. Like I like, and then putting that out there, and then people click on it and they comment on it and like it, like that is pretty cool to me. So I even when I started working with the first editor, I was like, I don't know, like, is he going to do it how I do it? Or it turns out he do it way better and taught me a lot of things too. But before you take that leap, it's like, I don't want to give up the thing that I've worked so hard to like create and just be completely detached from it. It's like a scary kind of thing sometimes.
That's exactly where I'm at right now. Cause I want to hire an editor, but I just don't know where to find someone who would have the eye to edit comedy, you know?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to find an editor who has that like talent that's similar to you?
Well, I had the idea of hiring an editor for like 6 months before I actually started working with one, maybe longer than that, of just like, but I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know who could understand this to me, all this kind of stuff. And then I saw a comedian from Atlanta who we follow each other on Instagram and we'll DM from time to time. He had this YouTube channel linked in his bio, and he had like 5 videos on there from a few months back or whatever, and they had cool thumbnails and they were about different comedy, like history stuff, like how Andrew Schulz got his start, something that I would probably make a video about. And I just watched it to be like, oh, this is cool that someone else is like interested in this kind of stuff. And the editing on it was great. Like I loved it. And I was like, hey man, I was like, I know that you're a comedian, which is a huge step into understanding how to edit these videos. I know that you're a comedian and I loved your editing on this thing. Like, would you want to edit my videos for me? I'm looking for a weekly recurring editor. And he was like, I actually didn't edit that video. It was a friend of mine who's a full-time editor. He also has done some stand-up. He's a big stand-up fan. Like, I'll give you his contact information. So then that's Austin, my current editor now, is how I found him. But before, I was just kind of paralyzed with options of being like, what I'm just going to put in like the community section that I'm looking for an editor. How do I even know if this? First of all, the editor would have to be better than me for me to hire him in the first place, because it's somewhat about time. But also, I was watching a lot of Mr. Beast interviews. I was watching a lot of interviews with Logan Paul's editor and all these, and I was learning more about how to make YouTube videos instead of comedy podcasts. Because to me, every YouTube video I saw was mostly like a Joe Rogan clip or something where they're just talking straightforward, and no matter what they're talking about, the camera's just on them. And then I started getting into learning about YouTube and how to be successful on YouTube and how to make your thumbnails better for YouTube and the videos and showing something instead of showing you saying something, like adding way more B-roll, adding in way more edits. So I wanted to find someone that could do like YouTube editing, not comedy podcast editing, like YouTube video editing, but have the comedy sense. And so that kind of worked out pretty perfectly. But like that kind of taught me a lot about too. Like listening to Mr. Beast be like, if you want to grow your channel, it's better to put all your time into one really good video that could get 50 million views versus trying to make 10 videos that could get 50,000 views. Like just how like exponential all those interviews, if you're trying to do anything on YouTube or mainly just YouTube, but I guess social media in general, even though he's not a comedian and it doesn't relate to comedy and stand-up and podcasting, I've just really, I think, taken a leap once I started like researching and trying to learn from the people who are most successful on the platform outside of comedy, and then just trying to apply that to the videos that I make, which are about comedy.
And it worked brilliantly. I mean, literally, like it worked, perfectly.
I think that there's
that's
a
awesome.
jump.
You found an editor like that. That's maybe I'll ask for his contact info after this.
For sure.
That'd be awesome.
I
was gonna ask you too, like who, because I know you like posted this on Instagram. Who do you think, in your opinion, would be like the 4 best comedians for a podcast to put them together?
Oh man. Well, I know the post that you're talking about, and I'm trying to do more posts like that, like going to ESPN's page and like they have that like build your starting lineup of NBA players or whatever. So I'm just trying to make more interactive posts like that.
You should do like a fantasy football version for comedy.
That would be sick.
You know what I'm saying?
I just don't know how you would track their success, but that would be sick. All right, we'll put a pin in that idea.
Yeah.
But the top, that's tough. I think you got to have Mark and Shane there to hold it down up front. Because Mark will, like you see on Protect Our Parks, constant jokes about literally anything, just one-liners nonstop. And Shane, I mean, is just hilarious. There's no one, I think, that I get more excited to see as a guest on a podcast right now. He doesn't tell really the same stories every time. He's really current events. Like there's some guys that I feel like go on a podcast and just try to like get to their stories, if that makes sense. Like, and you hear them a lot, which is fine, but I like mixing it up. So I'm going to go with
like,
those two
Shane
first.
Is so knowledgeable too. Like I'm sure you probably saw the podcast with Louis C.K. all about the presidents in history.
Yeah.
Were those awesome?
Yeah, the 7 hours of them. Yeah.
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 So much.
They're both so knowledgeable. It's crazy when I hear people talk like that. I'm like, I don't know anything like this. Like how do you even know that much about any topic? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But okay, so then I'll throw Tim Dillon in there as my 3. But I'm trying to make these people go together. I don't know if that necessarily goes together. But that's what I'll do for now, because that makes any interview really fun. And then let's see. I don't know who. I'm going to ask you the same question after this, so we'll see your response. But for my 4, I was going to say Joe, but then it just sounds like I did Protect My Parks, but swapped out Ari for Tim Dillon. So, I'm going to go. This is a random pick. I don't know how these people would work together, but I'm going to go with Andrew Santino. I think he is great as in any situation on a podcast. I think Whiskey Ginger is criminally underrated. I think he's a great improver on these podcasts. And I don't know how these 4 people would interact with each other, but it would definitely be interesting. I would tune in.
Well, I want to, I want to see more matchups of comedians you don't typically see together, because I imagine you kind of feel the same way. Like sometimes it does feel a little stale seeing the same people together all the time.
Yeah.
Like, 2 Bears, 1 Cave is great, but I'm glad they started switching it up a little bit every now and then.
Yeah. And they had to because of the move, but
scheduling.
I think the guest Bears or whatever they want to call it is pretty genius of an idea, even if that was their intention, which obviously they had to do it for scheduling. But that's a great idea to be like, okay, it's either going to be Bert and a guest or Tom and a guest. So if you're a Tom fan, you basically have a podcast that's just his, and if you're a Burt fan, you have a podcast that's just his with them talking to guests, which are also great comedians. And then every once in a while, you'll get them together. That seems genius.
What if that could be like your fantasy version of like stand-up brackets, right? Like you can have people vote on what comedians you want to bring together for podcasts, and you have your studio, and they fly out and they do like actual like matchups together.
That would be sick. That I think I might be a few years away from that amount of poll.
I know, obviously,
but that would be sick. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Really cool.
I like that
once
idea.
You get to that level.
Some good ideas people.
Yeah, definitely. Hit me up anytime. I love thinking about stuff like this.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd probably say. I mean, I love Tom Segura so much.
Yeah,
but I know, like, let's say you pick Tom and Joe, for example, who are some of my favorite comedians, or Louis C.K. They kind of, and I get this like this too, so I can't blame them. They kind of can get serious sometimes on podcasts.
Yeah,
and if you're going really for like pure comedy, just like all out laughs, you want more kind of crazy chaos stuff. So I gotta say, like Theo Vaughn, Joey Diaz, Tim Dillon.
This is so much better than mine already. That is because yours could actually go together like flawlessly.
Fourth, Bill, if you threw Bill Burr in there just to get angry, and call everyone out,
angry at Theo,
I think that would be good too.
That was one of the comments I saw a lot on the Schulz versus Nelk kind of thing. Is they were like, dude, imagine if Bill Burr was on this podcast. Like Schulz really just went in there as a New York comedian and was just like, you guys don't know anything about me. You guys are kind of acting like clowns right now, and like I'm annoyed. And it's like, yeah, more power to him. Like if Bill Burr did that, no one would be blinking an eye because he has done that like 2 or 3 times. So yeah. I
respected Bill and Andrew for both doing that.
Yeah, of course.
They did the right thing.
Yeah. And it was funny.
I didn't think the podcast was too bad either. I wasn't like, this is terrible. I was just like, I actually kind of enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of boring, but I liked it. It didn't seem that bad because of how bad you heard it was. And then you're like, oh, this is just kind of like.
Why. Yeah, I think that's why I liked it.
But if that came out as a regular episode, I think, well, I don't know if the Full Send fans would really feel much of a difference, but the Schulz fans that were going over there to be like, oh, let's see him in this interview would probably in the comments be like, this was just kind of boring and like weird. Yeah. Like it was just stale. Like there were times where no one was talking. Like he said, like people were just sitting there, like 4 people. If me and you caught a lull of silence, it wouldn't be that weird. It was the first time we've talked to each other or over Zoom, and there's just 2 of us. 4 people sitting there who are all career entertainers with nothing to say. Like that's pretty bad on a channel with 2 million subs.
Definitely. It was I think they said it was the worst podcast, but I don't know. It's
a lot of people think it could have just been a marketing ploy though too, because their worst podcast now just took over all the news cycle for the last.
They are good at doing that.
Yeah.
Andrew's good at doing that too. Andrew's good at kind of stirring up some drama and
Yeah.
What about like the worst comics for a podcast?
Like worst combination?
Well, no, just like because I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if you like brought Amy Schumer and Carlos Mencia together?
yeah,
or something.
Just had them talk about their writing philosophy.
Yeah, how they steal jokes.
Yeah, that would be funny. It's weird because it's like not every comedian is a podcaster or even makes appearances, which is something that I love comedy, not podcasting. But right now, you have way more access to comedians through their podcasts. They do it once a week for an hour and a half. You maybe see some crowd work clips every once in a while, but that's the only way to like celebrate or rally behind or interact with these guys right now is through podcasting. But I'm a fan of comedy and stand-up. And that's just right now, that's just the way that this is being put out there. But it is weird because like I want to be Joke WRLD, but I'm only really focused in. I only really have content usually about the people that have a weekly running podcast. Like there's so many other comedians that aren't in this kind of limelight that I know about or would like to talk about, but they just usually will slip my mind because they're not podcasters, which is so weird. Well,
right. That's like really the only way you can get discovered or seen now online is having to do a podcast.
Or like
and, everyone's good at like just talking and sitting and doing this. And not every comedian wants to do that. Yeah. And now it's like the new thing you have to kind of do.
And getting out like a best of Dave Chappelle or like Kevin Hart video, that has to be their stand-up, really. They don't have enough of these podcast appearances, even as a guest, and they obviously don't have their own. So it's like, but also everyone's seen their specials. Like a compilation of just clips that are from different specials is like, what is that even? Like everyone's already seen that. They're years old, and it's just so guys like that will just kind of fly under the radar on my channel. But I feel it's confusing because like they're huge players in the stand-up world. Like Chris Rock, besides the Will Smith stuff and then his new special that was live streamed, which like that's obviously news that I can cover. Like he's doing something that's never been done before, live streaming a special. Like we'll make 2 videos about it like we did. But other than that, how do I really make a video about Chris Rock nowadays? Unless it's like a story from his past or something.
You could do like Chat GPT Chris Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, you don't want to do that. Like, I think some of these comedians, right, when you're Chris Rock, I don't think he wants to be that public, and he wants to be selective, kind of like selective outrage. He wants to be selective about what he puts out there, right? He doesn't want to.
I don't think he should have a podcast. I think that'd be weird. I think he's such a legend that he can sell out everywhere. He's known and respected so much. We don't need to hear from him once a week talk about like the submarine disappearing or whatever. Like he has this legendary aura about him where it'd be weird if Dave Chappelle started a podcast and he had like this mic, he had like the background and he's like, all right, my guest today, like you don't need to do that. Like you're a legend and you're going to sell out every arena you go to. But as far as my channel goes, it's just hard to sometimes keep them in the loop and be like, this is the world of comedy. This is Joke World. Every comedian but like really the only like highlights and content is from the people who constantly put out stuff, and most of that's podcasting. So yeah, I don't know.
You could do, like you said, like you could do like different sections, like you do the clips about podcasts and all the stuff you're currently doing and the weekly updates, but then you also do like history of comedians and episode 1 and Dave Chappelle or whatever, or how Dave Chappelle tells a joke, which has been done. But you could do it like, your way. Right. An interesting, specific way. Like how you have a keen eye for how stand-ups are trying to learn comedy, like early stand-ups. Kind of do it like, well, Dave Chappelle started out this way, but he eventually evolved into this kind of storytelling, or now he even tells jokes backwards. He's talking about, you kind of cover it from that angle.
Yeah. That's what it would have to be.
For like up-and-coming comics, like I was going to say earlier, like we were saying, the one big problem is you don't get a lot of stage time to practice, right? And if there is a way, I mean, doing comedy or the internet is fucking terrible. But, you know what I mean? Like doing, like Joe's talked about the Zoom shows. I've tried to do it before over Twitch with, hundreds of people watching or something. It's just doesn't really work. But if there could be a way where comedians could send in jokes, it could be a hub of, open micers sending in those clips or something. And you highlight them in some way, like doing a weekly update almost of open micers, telling certain jokes.
Yeah, like a weekly, even best of the week submissions, like like all on a video. Or and then they would also be easier to contact to talk to if it could be a full, like, all right, here's a 5-minute interview with them, and then these clips. There's a lot to do with that. I wanted to, because I was also like looking into YouTube and what makes people successful in different niches and stuff. And I like these basketball guys who will travel to different cities and be like, all right, we're pulling up to your park with my 5 guys and we're playing for $10,000, something like that. I was trying to relate that into like, what if I went around for Joke WRLD videos to like different open mic scenes and somehow like gave the funniest comedian like amount of money that would look good in like a title or thumbnail or something. Like try to be like how these different niches do that, or set up some sort of like Joke WRLD invitational or even festival, and it's live streamed onto the channel of all these subscribers, and they can,
I wonder if any bigger comedians who are, because obviously like you're growing in the comedy community, people know about you, some bigger comedians know about you. I wonder if they'd be willing to invest in you to do something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's helping everyone in the comedy community. to do this. Like Joe Rogan is all about helping people who started that culture of, you know, you got everyone moved to Austin, Texas and made that whole scene there. I think the way comedy is now, they would be willing to support something like that out of self-interest and just because they love comedy as well.
Maybe they could even be like a judge on like if we could get like three like big time comedians to like sit and like be the judges, like a panel, and then that's how like we pick a winner or something. Like, and we just like we say, all right, we're opening up our submissions. Everyone send in a clip, and then we're gonna pick 50 open micers, and we're gonna all like a open mic festival basically, but it's also like American Idol or whatever, because we got Tim Dillon and people sitting there and they're like, you're moving on, you're not like even. It'd
be
like,
way better than American Idol. I mean, it definitely would be.
That's it. It'd be really good. That would be interesting.
But I bet they would invest. I bet they would invest in, because that would be the future of comedy. I wanted to ask you where you think the future of comedy is headed right now, with everything going on with the Comedy Mothership, which I was going to ask you if you've been to yet. Have you?
I have, yes. It was unreal. It was awesome. I went to Joe Rogan and Friends in April. It was so sick. Like, I think the future is in really good hands. I think I was talking to Mark Norman about this after our interview, and I said this in a video before, but I think this is kind of just the beginning of comedians like opening their own clubs, like the Mothership. Chappelle's opening one in Ohio. And I think in 10 or 15 years from now, like how Broadway in Nashville is just every big country singer with their own bar, I think that's what 6th Street in Austin is going to look like, with like Your Mom's House club, the Mothership, maybe Tim Dillon, Dillon's or whatever. Like, I think it's going to be, I think we're getting into a new era where all these guys have so much money and no bosses. And that is awesome. Like the Machine movie just came out, obviously, like people are, I think it's in great hands. There's some things like YouTube doesn't cater to the comedy industry booming, because even the biggest comedy account on YouTube is still kind of minuscule compared to what like some YouTubers are. Like a big YouTuber would, outside of the comedy space, is like the size, if not bigger than Rogan's channel. And he's like the mecca of comedy YouTube channels. So like they don't really adhere to like, oh, the comedy boom's going off and we need to let these guys say whatever they want and stuff. So that can kind of be an issue. But I feel like there's, I don't know, like Twitter seems to be a solution to that. Maybe the tide will swing back around. That really seems to be the only thing that I personally feel like is at all a problem right now is,
are you ever worried about your channel being taken down for certain comedy clips or?
Of course. I'm definitely worried, but I just have to keep going and I don't know what else to do. I worry about it, but I can't. I just do it.
I'm worried about it every day, dude.
Yeah, like it sucks.
Last video I posted a picture of I posted a short. We talked about the Barbie Oppenheimer thing, Barbenheimer. Have you heard about it? And I animated Barbies. I was like, what if Barbie Land had real world events like a Holocaust or a 9/11, and they're like pink twin towers? And I animated. I painted the twin towers pink and animated Barbies jumping out of the twin towers as they're exploding. And I'm thinking, like, is this gonna get taken down?
Is that up?
Yeah. It's up.
What, dude? That's so much worse than Roseanne. I swear to God, that's crazy. Whatever she was saying about the Holocaust, that's not worse, but like to YouTube, I would think it's worse. That's hilarious. So I guess I would be worried about that, but like you can't really control that to a certain extent. And these guys everyone seems to be doing like really well, selling out everywhere they go. Like it seems to be in good hands. The thing is, like I guess the money thing could maybe be a double-edged sword, because some people in comedy, I feel like it's been a long running like philosophy or whatever, where if you eventually get too successful, too rich, like you start losing touch in some of your jokes, and it's harder to write a joke about airplanes when you're always in first class or private or whatever. You know what I mean? So I guess maybe losing touch would be something I would think, oh, what if that's a problem? Because these guys are making so much money. But I don't think that's a problem. I think it's actually a good thing, like what you're seeing with how Rogan is using it. Like we're just getting more opportunities. to see our comedians do different things. Your Mom's House has expanded. They've added 2 new shows this year. They're up to like 6 different podcasts on their network. Like, so it can be used for good things, but you just hear that about comedians in general, that sometimes they can lose touch as they get more successful. So maybe that's a worry, but it's also one of the biggest positives. So,
it's so cool now that they're the networks. Like they went all around the gatekeepers and have all this stuff now. I mean, Tom Segura, I mean, he's so cool. Yeah, he has like 5 or 6 podcasts. Just added First Date or whatever.
Yeah, and then they just added another one. What's it called?
Yeah, it's with from The Sopranos, the people from them. Yeah. That's great. It's really cool to see. And I think Rogan kind of did set that. It's amazing how one person could set the tone for all this.
Yeah,
I really believe he changed the world. I think with his just
100%
doing a podcast,
and with just the way like how I got introduced to comedy, and same with you, and like our age entering this world is like, he is the most influential person, and he is like the staple. He is like, the standard, I should say. So entering this business, if you want to call it that, people our age think that is how you're supposed to do it in comedy, when all you hear from the older guys talking is how it used to be so competitive and backstabbing and all that stuff. But that's kind of, I would hope, reflects in my channel as well, of trying to like put other people on and just spread positive messaging, and not have a famine mentality. Like that is going to keep growing in the younger people, because Joe Rogan is setting that standard, and he is the standard. So that's all we know. We think that that's how you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rubbing off on Tony Hinchcliffe. I mean, he's making more people careers than anyone except for Joe, basically. Like it's awesome. It's awesome, really, everything that's happening. I think the future is in great hands.
I really do too. And Kill Tony's done so many good things. And I was so proud of Tony. Like, people will come at him and try and cancel him and say he's, racist for the whole Asian thing, or he's like, makes fun of people. But it's like, dude, he's let on all these disabled. Personally, for me being disabled, it's just so cool to see. He had Michael Lair on, who is, very handicapped and in a wheelchair, and sadly passed away now. But he has Jared Nathan, Aaron Belisle. And I've never seen anyone more accepting of people in the disabled community.
Well, of course,
I get told all the time, like people don't believe me when I tell them this, but I mean, it is like all the time people discriminate against me or talk shit or do whatever just because I'm disabled. I'm strangers all the time. Damn. It's like real, like if I can go anywhere and it will be like the 1950s for, a minority, right?
Yeah.
It's weird because I'm still sometimes like, we're in 2023. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's
even with the buildings that you can't go in. Yeah. But
I just tell me you can't come in here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're telling me I can't go in your establishment? They're like, yes.
Yeah. That's
some people have been like, I've gotten, one time I got, we were at the beach one time, my family, when I was, this is like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was for 4th of July. And my mom and my sister wanted to get some candy for like 4th of July. So saltwater taffy or something. And they told me that they don't allow people like me inside.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That wording?
Your son can't come in here. And they let my mom and my sister and her boyfriend go in there, but I couldn't come in. And then
they said
my mom and my
like
sister were screaming at them. And they just didn't allow people like me in their store. So I just, that's happens way more than anyone would ever think.
That is,
so when I see Tony do that, I'm like, that's a good man. And no one has any right to come at him just because he has a dark sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's so.
Of course, you know that, and I know that, but the people coming at him don't care about comedy or his sense of humor. They're not fans of his. They're not people that are going to go to his shows or watch Kill Tony. Mm-hmm. They see a clip or hear a narrative and then just want to repeat that over and over and say, this is a bad guy, and I'm making myself feel better by calling this guy a bad guy. They wouldn't know any of the things that you just said about him, nor would they even care about those. I don't even think that would change their mind. Like people were saying, the dude, I don't even know his name, but the dude who tried to cancel him, the Asian guy who he went at in the first place, he was on a podcast.
His name now.
I don't know either, but he was on a podcast recently not like in the last calendar year or so, being like Hans Kim is only on there because he had to cover up for me, for like, and it's like that's just so they don't even want to hear the facts of like what the reality is. They would even twist that and be like, oh, Michael Lair was only there because now he can make wheelchair jokes. It's like, well, what about him maybe just being a good person with a funny sense of humor that a lot of people like? It's a very successful show. But that's what's awesome about it is now he can just be like, fuck you guys. Like I have the exit velocity of I'm going to do my show every week at the mothership because Joe Rogan doesn't care. He's
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, and enough people are going to be in this alley that are desperate to show up or selling out every show months and months and months in advance. Like you can't even get a ticket to Kill Tony for the rest of this year. So it doesn't matter what anyone else says because he has his world and that's all that he really needs.
And it's so important that they built that atmosphere because without it, you couldn't do anything nowadays with the censorship.
Yeah.
You have to rely solely on like YouTube, and we know what that's like.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't put any of that shit out. I mean, they could still do the live shows, but if the comedy mothership didn't exist, like he got kicked out of the other club, right?
The Vulcan? I don't think so. I don't know.
I remember there was a controversy. Something happened over a joke. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I think there was something where they said you can't. I believe.
I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not. I don't. It doesn't ring any bells to me, but I might just miss that. But yeah, it's just weird because the people that want to call comedians this, that, or whatever don't support comedy in general. They're miserable people typically who don't have a good sense of humor themselves and either are just miserable and try and take that out on someone or can't understand that other people find this funny or can't even separate the saying something for funny to make people laugh or just for shock value that you don't actually mean. Like apparently there's people who think that everything that comes out of your mouth, even when you're saying I'm a comedian with a microphone on stage, has to be something that you actually 100% wholeheartedly mean, which makes me kind of think that people who don't get comedy or want to cancel comedians are just unintelligent in general, and that's not their fault, but they're just like kind of dumb because like how can you like be realistic if you're at all a critical thinker or have any sort of common sense? Like I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Like you know
100%.
what this whole thing is like. It's like canceling a musician for playing music. It's like, can't we act at all like we're adults with brains? Like that just, and it's not their fault that they're dumb, but they just kind of.
That's the thing. A lot of people aren't adults. They never grew up. Most people like didn't grow up. You know, they never got to that stage of critical thinking. And you even see it with some comedians who are like, you know, apologize. Oh, this is really sad when like even Patton Oswalt would apologize for his jokes, and like even bigger names would do it. I'm like, damn, bro, don't apologize for.
I think that's a lot of people trying to stay in Hollywood, trying to get movies, like being big time actors. Like people used to be shocked that Bob Saget had a dirty act because they would be like, he's like, you know, America, whatever, Full House,
America's
like,
Dad.
Yeah, I got confused because I thought, didn't they call Bill Cosby something like that too? I was
something,
like, I don't want to give Bob Saget Bill Cosby's nickname because, but yeah, then they'd be shocked to see him do like dirty jokes. But so I that's another great thing that's happening with Austin and the mothership and all these kind of things is that people don't care about that as much, or the studios will have to accept them just how they are, like they did with Bert, like, or they can make their own stuff. So yeah,
who do you think would be another comedian that would be great for like having their own movie?
I think Tim Dillon would be great to have his own movie or write his own movie. I think. Well, Schulz has been.
It would be called Life in the Big City.
Yeah. But I think he actually might be working on something, and I think I could see Andrew Schulz making a movie, maybe even just doing like the writing and like making like a old school comedy like Superbad or like Step Brothers or something. Like I could see like. I want to see comedians like it's cool to see them in it, and obviously The Machine was a different story because that's like such a legendary story, and obviously Bert has to be in that to tell that. But I think it'd be fun to see some of these guys just write like old school comedies, like 21 Jump Street or something.
There's nothing like that anymore. There's just besides The Machine. I mean, there's just nothing.
But could you imagine if like
Superbad,
if like the Flagrant crew got together and wrote a script like that, and then just hired a bunch of actors and put it on their YouTube channel? Like that would be hilarious, and they could just do that, like hour 40 video, that's shorter than all their podcasts even that get 1 million views almost every single time. So yeah, I mean, Infamous has like 17 million views right now. It's an hour special. Just make an hour 20 comedy movie, and yeah, turn the ad revenue on that, and you can make your money back just on YouTube. Maybe, I mean, I don't know how much it costs to make a movie, but 17 million views is quite the paycheck, I would assume. So,
and you could eat like he did with his special on the website before he put it on YouTube, right? You could sell tickets on his website.
That's an even better
make
idea.
Even more money.
Yeah, just do it like how people do live shows. Like put it on behind a $15, $25 paywall, like Louis did for Live at the Garden. It was $25 to watch that performance. I don't know how many people did it, but I'm sure it was.
Well, I think Andrew said he got, for when Andrew did it, he said he got paid more than Netflix offered him.
Yeah, his was massive. Yeah. The thing that people say about his, though, is that they got pissed off. Everyone who paid for it got a little annoyed when he put it for free on YouTube because they were like, I paid for this. And then you just kind of double dipped. But I would have assumed that he was going to do that in the first place. I don't think that's a crazy thing to do at all. I did too,
because I'm like, you're paying for the early access to see it when it drops. That's why I thought it was.
Yeah, and you're paying to buy into the story of him getting to keep all his jokes and supporting comedy. Yeah, so that was just a sentiment. That's another cool thing about this channel is I kind of like have my thumb on the pulse of like what the fans are feeling like towards a certain guy. Like if they're getting tired of someone, if someone's starting to act like this way or that way, like I just kind of like that just kind of soaks into just by like going around my YouTube analytics and stuff, seeing those comments, and you can just kind of get a vibe for like how people are feeling within the scene, which is pretty interesting.
And that's really nowhere else I've seen for comedy ever.
Yeah,
like you've really cultivated this like community.
There's some places like you said, like Reddit and stuff, but that's all one opinion basically, and it's not like,
dude, and the subreddit rules are always atrocious.
Yeah,
like you can't. I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah,
I don't know. And then you get banned all the time if you like post a stand-up joke or if you do something like.
Oh really?
So it's a little too strict. Yeah, it's kind of.
I haven't been on Reddit in a while. I used to, when I started off, I used to, whatever video I would make, I would put it in that podcast's Reddit. But they got sick of that too. I think I'm banned from most of it. Like if I was making like your mom's house video, I would also drop it in that Reddit, and then I'd put it in like Standup Reddit, and then put like, that was like pre like 1,000 subscribers, like just trying to like get these links anywhere. But I haven't been on there in a while. Yeah.
What do you think makes a comedy special like a real special? And do you think like having all the ones on Netflix now, like they're so common and they give them to people that aren't, in my opinion, the best? Like, do you think it's kind of diluting what a special is?
I think a real special is like 40 minutes and over. And I think that it is material that, and this is just off the top of my head, I haven't really thought about this question, but material that you've worked out for like at least close to a year, I would say. That's what it would take to get 40 minutes anyway, but ideally a little bit over than that, that's toured around multiple cities and been performed thousands of times, and that you are putting your final bow on and giving it out to the world before you start clean with a bunch of new jokes into the next step of your career. And I think that that's high level what it should be. And I think that now with the way that you can make your own specials on YouTube, and you can, I mean, they still cost money to create, but I think a lot of people would be better off just putting out like 20-minute chunks of stand-up for a long time on YouTube and letting people, or like clipping that all into shorts, or just getting people more familiar with their material before they just try to like stretch every single thing that they have to try to just make a special because they can say, I have a special done or something. But Netflix. So
you think like newer comics should focus on doing the shorter bits, or all comics?
Well, I would probably say newer, like and also this could be bad advice. I don't know. I've never really thought about this, but it would make sense.
But, you've done a lot of like analytical.
That's true.
You're in the deep of comedy. You study comedy.
Yeah.
Like you're a comedy scholar pretty much.
That's I guess true. So, I would say if I had an hour of material right now at this age and this unknownness in the industry as a comedian, I think it would benefit you more to make like 40 different shorts and reels and like a few really, really funny, like 4 or 5 minute clips, or even like a 20-minute clip from like a live show, and like just get a page with a ton of content on it instead of just one, as an unknown person, right? Instead of just 1 hour-long video where you hope that people will click on this special, commit to an hour of it, which realistically they're going to commit to the first 10 minutes and then turn it off, even if it's really good. And once that is posted, you might have a few months of YouTube trying to push it out in their algorithm before they're going to give up on it, versus taking that hour, maybe filming it like it is a special, but then just sending it to an editor or something that's going to be like, make this into literally 50 shorts. And I'm just going to, and make that your first special. And then, yeah, you still have that full length version in case you wanted to post it like Schulz did after the whole thing, but film that hour special and then make it into 50 shorts, put that all over the internet so people see that, but they haven't seen the rest. They're starting to get familiar with you. Now you have 50 chances for YouTube to randomly spike you up something and get eyes on you. You can gain subscribers. You have more momentum going in, and then release the full thing. And people are like, oh, I've seen this guy before. Oh, I've seen this. They click on, I've seen this stage and background with him before. And this one funny clip that I saw, like, this must be the full length version. Now people are going to watch for longer. You've already converted so many more fans beforehand. And that's what I would do if I had 0 specials, but an hour of material. And I think that would just be just for the first one, not like a career plan, but I think that it'd be hard.
I agree with you. It's like you need to get your name out there first.
Yeah.
And like you've done, like you need to brand. People need to understand how powerful like branding is.
And high quality
and
too.
High quality too, right. Definitely quality over quantity, but if you can have both, that's great. And then what I've done before too, even for my stand-up clips, is I'll post a full stand-up clip, break it all up into shorts, release all the shorts separately.
Yeah.
And then put in the comments a link to the full thing. And then I'll get, like it says, like, other, and when you go to analytics, it says like other YouTube features or whatever. And I know that's when they click a link, so I can measure how many people click the link. Yeah. That seems pretty effective too. Because like when you're Mark Norman, whose new special that you saw, I thought it was his best one. Like it's just, and I'm so impressed by how like he just keeps it going constantly. Like we're like saying how we're worried about forgetting our, shit. And he's like, just gets it all out there. And he did improv and, and if you're like him, like Tom Segura, his new special Sledgehammer, that's a special, right?
Right.
That's a special. But I think you have to be at that level. Or even
I agree.
Like,
and very few people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Matt Rife, it just popped in my head. I saw him do, you see him do that giant show in Bend, Oregon?
Yeah. My buddy works at that venue. Yeah. That was sick. He, good for him. I mean, that is awesome. I see. This is the thing that I was going back to, like,
what are your thoughts on him? Because some people are like jealous because he's like, good looking and so successful now and all the.
I like him. I think I was self-conscious because I posted a video called the Matt Rife problem. And the problem was that there's no tickets available for comedy fans because it's all just a bunch of white girls taking it, being, oh, bachelor party, whatever. But people just click, and this is what I'm talking about, learning from Mr. Beast and how to do YouTube and stuff. That was a great title and thumbnail, but half the people click on it and start talking shit to me, like, oh, dude, why are you hating on this guy? Like, he's got good jokes, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm just listening just listen for 5 minutes. The problem, it was just a creative title. Call it clickbait if you want. I think it's just a good YouTube title. The problem is that there's no tickets available for real comedy fans. And people are thinking that I don't like him. I think he's great. He started when he was 14 years old. He's put in, the 12 years into stand-up that it takes to get to that level. He's hit lightning in a bottle. The only problem with it is that most of his fans are people that know nothing about comedy, which you can run into an issue down the line if that's the case, because these people that are just coming to bring you teddy bears to your show and want you to flirt with them in the crowd, that's great to move tickets. But that's also the same demographic of people that love to cancel people and get offended and put infographics on their stories. So I think, obviously, you don't have to tell him anything to do or whatever. And this is an insane world tour that sold out in 48 hours. He crashed Ticketmaster's website. I would just be a little uncomfortable myself if my whole fan base, which is massive now, was almost like a sleeping lion in a way, or like it's like you either have to like call me, because he's like a legitimate like funny comic. He'll go edgy. He's a dark top. He's really funny. But I feel like some of these girls aren't ready for that, and I think that you could run into a problem down the line if your fan base is easily offended, and likes to try to cancel people. Like that's kind of the demographic that does it. If we're making vast generalizations, which maybe all his fans are different, but it doesn't really seem like it. It seems like literally like bachelorette parties are showing up and drinking and yelling stuff out in the crowd, and they wanted to flirt with them. So I think that you could maybe run into a problem down the line being a real funny, really good comic that likes to have no boundaries. You're either going to have to maybe put boundaries on yourself, or you might run into a problem with your own fans.
Because that's the thing about him. Some people don't really know him who haven't seen his content. Think, oh, he's just a pretty boy. He's like one of the TikTok stars that does comedy videos, and then goes on tour and does terrible, but he still sells out a bunch of tickets. But he's not like that. He's like a genuinely good comedian.
Yeah.
And they're not like ready for that kind of actual humor,
Yeah.
And I agree. It's kind of like the sleeping giant, like America in World War II. Like they might rise up and kind of try and nuke him like Oppenheimer or some shit.
Yeah. But we just got to wait for that Pearl Harbor, and like, who knows what's going to happen. But like
a sneak attack.
Yeah. But a TikTok comedian would not get invited to the Dave Chappelle summer camp shows. They wouldn't sell out those big things in Oregon. And I know that there's he still has fans like you or I. Like I'd consider myself a fan. But
yeah, me too.
But I can't get tickets, and it's all these fucking girls that don't know anything about comedy. That this is their first time in a comedy club. Not that girls don't know anything about comedy, but I feel like these girls don't. These Matt Rife girls. Yeah. So
maybe if we take the positive approach, maybe it'll bring in a whole like those people who would cancel someone. Maybe because they're watching Matt Rife, they have like a new perspective on comedy. They're like, maybe I won't like be angry all the time and cancel people. Like maybe it might expand humor.
That would be positive. That would be positive. I just feel like it's the same people who probably think Dave Chappelle is a transphobe might think that.
Dude, that's just. It was literally a story about how he had a trans friend.
Who they bullied into killing herself. Yeah. And people are like, that was really transphobic of you, Dave. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, that's what I'm saying. People like stop having common sense.
How could you be any more backwards? They're calling him transphobic for being friends with a trans stand-up comedian who supported him, and that they made her kill herself because she was friends with Dave.
Yeah. Well, that's the
There's no reasoning with that. There's no reasoning.
Yeah.
You can't reason with that.
That's the same people that are just unintelligent.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And that's why I'm so glad, like, at least Elon bought Twitter, because, it kind of opens things up a little bit, because that whole narrative of canceling isn't the avenue like it used to be, I think.
It's even tough with that, though, because you buy Twitter, and then there's 10 smear campaigns about how you're, and everyone needs to, like, the media is just so corrupt, and the government, it's like, okay, now everyone's trying to paint Elon out to be this terrible person just because he is the only one doing anything like supportive of free speech and comedy. And like, now it's like, okay, everyone write a smear article about Elon because he's letting people say whatever they want. Like, it's kind of scary in that regard, but I don't know. People have their own armies at this point. They have their own Patreons, their own mailing list. They're going to get their tickets sold, and they're going to be able to go on tour. And there's a market for it that's just not going to go away. So wherever it has to move around, so be it,
It's good because things are kind of like being decentralized in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And people are building all their own armies, but then it's also kind of like everyone is also separating from each other a little bit and don't know what the other people and other groups are doing, like tribes.
Yeah.
And then you can go to war with each other over misunderstandings, and then drama happens like in the comedy community, like you've talked about. And so there's positives and everything too. I know we're going way long, so let's see here. We talked about YouTube kind of with censorship and stuff. I was going to ask you. I had a question here. What's your opinion on darker comedy? Where is the line? And did Ari Shaffir ever cross it?
I love darker comedy. That was what I liked to do when I was doing it. I think that's just funny. And I think that if you know what comedy is and there really isn't a line, I think the line is it has to be, if you're intending to be funny, then I think that is the line and that's it. Like, there's nothing worse than when a dark joke completely bombs, because then it's just super awkward and people are like, did you actually like mean that, or like what's going on? So as long as it's the funny, or as long as it's intended to be funny, then you're okay with backing it up and being like, all right, like if you guys didn't like that one, you're not gonna like the rest of this, or say something like they acknowledge that, like, all right, like I'm joking, or something, you know. I think that the intent is most of what matters. Like, you can say a joke about black people if you don't intend, if your intent is to be funny, then you can say a joke about anything, I think. But did Ari ever cross the line? I don't know. Here's the thing. I was I was not mad or like this piece of shit ever, like in regards especially to the Kobe thing. I was just pretty disappointed because like I was so sad when that happened. Like, I think I might have cried for just a second, teared up a little bit. Like, that was terrible. So I didn't like seeing that, but I knew what he was doing, and he does it for every celebrity that dies, which is kind of a weird bit that I personally didn't think it was like funny, but I didn't think that he was like an evil person because of it. It's clear what he was doing, and yeah, if you're really that disconnected or really that much of a comedian at heart where you could take this tragedy that also involved children and still go that hard, then hats off to you. I just being this massive sports and Kobe fan, it was like, it made me uncomfortable as a person, but I wasn't like, I don't know if it was, I don't know. That's a tough one. The dosing thing, it could be a funny joke that I mean, I would do to my 25-year-old friends that don't have any kids or wife or whatever, have roommates and stuff. I think it's a little time and place could be a little bit better, but I mean, I don't know.
That was more of an action than a joke. That was more of like you know, that was less of a joke, more of a Jesus Christ, Ari stuff.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess if that's, you know what to expect, and he's consistent, so I don't think he goes too far. I think that he isn't backing down. I I don't know. There's really no one else like him that exists, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think I don't think he goes over a line, but well, maybe he sometimes does, the timeliness of it, but sometimes I think like I had this quote I wrote. It's like, I think God has a dark sense of humor because it brings a darkness to light. And I really do believe that. But sometimes for me, like when I saw that Kobe joke, it made me, and I'm very, very dark sense of humor. I was even like, shh, just because of the kid, especially, I was like, damn, Ari. But,
his kid and some other kids too. Like,
there are other kids too. And no one really talks about them.
Really, well, no one talks about them in general. It's always like R.I.P. Kobe, Gigi, and the others. It's like, damn.
It's just the others.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like I said, the intent is the most important thing. And I assume he literally did that for every celebrity that dies, like even before Kobe. And I assume that the intent was to make his fans laugh. Maybe.
I don't know if he did one. I cried when Norm died. I remember find that out. I still can't watch his newest special. I just haven't done it yet. The one in the sun.
Yeah, it's kind of eerie
to.
Yeah, and like just sad, and there's no.
I got like 5 minutes through, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, just the setup and like the telling jokes by yourself, and the fact that he knows why he's recording this is pretty tough. It's tough. But it's also pretty cool. Like, I feel like that was such a Norm style way to go out. And I think it's pretty cool. Like that he did that. And I don't think, if I knew that I was going to die, I don't think that I'd be able to tell 0 people about it. But I think that would be like pretty cool now that I've seen how that plays out. Even though some of his friends were like actually upset, like they didn't get to say goodbye and stuff, whatever. I just feel like he would be grinning at that and being like, whatever. But it also makes his last Letterman appearance very sad too. Like it's sad. I mean, life is sad, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my top comics. I might put him as number one.
Yeah.
At least for like being on podcasts or doing like the jokes at the end.
Yeah.
I've seen those clips a billion times.
Those are so funny. Those, yeah. I love that. And Adam Egget there being the punchline of all of them. Just giving him the worst jokes, and the guest is like, what the fuck is this? And he's like,
he's a Holocaust denier.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the show. Let's plug your channel, Joke WRLD. Anything else you want to plug?
Check out our Instagram. It's also Joke WRLD, and our second channel, Clip WRLD. We're gonna start posting there more. But the main thing is just, if you want to stay in the comedy loop, if you would benefit from a Sports Center comedy channel in your life, then go check out Joke WRLD. But thank you for having me on today. This was a lot of fun talking comedy and getting to know you some more. And yeah, this is awesome.
No problem, Jake. I loved it, man. And thanks again, everyone, for watching. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and give us a like on YouTube, comment, blah, 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 whatever, all the algorithm shit.
Yeah.
So thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.